So DJI has definitely listened to their customers for the past year now since the DJI Mavic 1 was released. We now have the new Mini 2 or DJI Mini 2, and for this price range and what you get, this one definitely does not disappoint. And when I got the Mini 2, I was like, we finally have completed the holy trinity of OcuSync with the Mini 2. Because if you didn't know, the Mini 1 was on Wi-Fi transmission. Now we have a much more reliable transmission system with OcuSync 2.0, which is now on the Mini 2, but of course came from drones like this, the Mavic 2 Pro and the Zoom, all the way down to here, the Mavic Air 2, which came out earlier this year, also has OcuSync 2.0 technology, and now we have the Mini 2 with that same transmission system. And if you guys are new to my channel, my name is Aldrin Anastasio. I do a lot of drone tech tips, tutorials, and product reviews right here on this channel. So if that's something that interests you, please consider subscribing and also hitting that bell to be notified when I post new videos. Now DJI did improve all those features from the Mini 1 that people really expected to be on this one. So of course we'll talk about those features as well as a bunch of other smaller enhancements that they did on the Mini 2 that might not really make headlines, but definitely I can see a difference from the Mini 1 to the Mini 2. So after finding this for the past couple weeks, let's go through all of those features. There's definitely a lot of information I want to try to pack in this video. So if you do want to jump around a little bit, I have everything listed down below with timestamps. If you just want to see certain areas of the video, feel free to use those timestamps down below in the video description. Now here we have the new DJI Mini 2 right next to the DJI Mavic Air 2 and the big boy right here, the Mavic 2 Pro. Now I'm gonna have a full comparison video of these three right here, the Mini, the Air 2, and the Mavic 2 Pro. So make sure you guys check out that link down below in the video description once I post that up there. I'll go into a lot more detail in that video, but just at a very high level, when you talk about something like the Mini, then the Air 2, and then the Mavic 2 Pro, you're talking about a smaller camera sensor on this one right here, a little bit larger one on the Air 2, and then you have the larger 1-inch sensor on the Mavic 2 Pro. Another difference between these three besides just the camera is that you don't have any obstacle avoidance on the smaller Mini. You do have obstacle avoidance on the Air 2 and the Mavic 2 Pro, as well as things like active track. You don't also have things like that where you can have the drone follow you. You don't have those on something this small on the Mini, but you will have them on the larger ones right here. And like I said, I'm gonna go through it in a little bit more detail in a separate video, but I just want to give you guys kind of the high level of what some of the main differences are with these three drones. Now, just like the Mini 1, the Mini 2 is 249 grams. Another big feature, like I mentioned earlier, that OcuSync 2 transmission system. Definitely a big upgrade over the Wi-Fi that they previously had. We also now have a wind resistance of level 5. And when it comes to video resolution, we now have up to 4K, 24, 25, and 30 frames a second. And we have a new added feature with zoom. If you wanted to zoom in a little bit in 4K, you can at a 2x zoom. Also in video, we do have those 5 quick shot modes similar to what we have on some of the other drones. And in photo mode, yes, we do now have Jpeg and RAW, and there's actually a few different panoramic modes on the Mini 2. Now, as far as what you get in the box, it really depends, of course, on which package you go with. DJI normally always has these two separate packages. Normally one's pretty basic one where you normally have this right here, which is the remote control. You have, of course, your drone right here, and you have all the accessories like extra propellers, the tools and stuff that you're gonna need to make any replacement on the propellers. But whenever they come out with these right here, which is normally the Flymore combo, this is probably the one I normally would always recommend, mainly because of the fact that you get extra batteries. You get 2 extra batteries, so you get 3 total. You get a battery hub, so if you go out flying and you fly 3 batteries straight, you just put all the batteries in a hub and you're able to charge those up one by one. You also get this right here, which is a bag. If you buy the basic kit, you don't get a bag, so you're not able to transport anything in. You're probably gonna have to buy another bag anyways. And you also get this right here, which is a propeller holder, which keeps your propellers nice and snug in here while you put it in the bag. You don't get this little strap on the basic kit. Now, I talked a little bit about this earlier, and that's OcuSync 2 technology. And for me, that's probably the biggest reason why the Mini 2 is such a big upgrade, because for those that don't know, the Mini 1 used Wi-Fi technology, which was also really, really good. You're able to get up to 4 kilometers in range from your remote control. You will see a difference though from the Wi-Fi transmission on the Mini 1, which might be a little bit weaker in those high traffic areas versus something like this, which is the OcuSync 2 technology on the Mini 2. When I normally go out flying, I'm probably anywhere between that 7 to 1500 foot range, if anything. I'll normally fly from a specific area all the way out to possibly the beach or around a specific type of landmark. But getting it out there, you know, 2, 3, 4 miles is probably something I pretty much would never really do. But on a couple times on my flights when I was testing out the Mavic Mini 2, I did take it out a little bit further than I normally would, which is normally, like I said, about 1,000, 2,000 feet. I took this thing out to 3, 4, 5,000 feet away. Didn't have any issue, and pretty much what I would expect from OcuSync 2 technology. Very similar to how when I would fly my Mavic Air 2 or my Mavic 2 Pro, there wouldn't really be any issues as far as that reception from your remote control to your drone. So even though it's rated for 10 kilometers or 6 miles, know that you fly it out there half a mile or probably even 2 miles, as long as you have a direct line of sight from your remote control to your drone, you shouldn't have any problems with reception back to your device. Another new enhancement on the Mini 2 that I really like, that probably most might not talk about too much, mainly because of the fact that it's just something that you kind of might overlook. And the startup is actually a lot quieter, and the propellers or the propeller noise seems to be actually quieter on the Mini 2 than it does on the Mini 1. Good though. It's doing good. Now, just like the Mavic Mini 1, the Mavic Mini 2 is also 249 grams. Now, why is that such a big deal? Well, if you are in the US and a lot of other countries as well, anything over 250 grams, you're gonna need to register your drone with the FAA. Now, I'm here in the US where we do have that regulation where you're supposed to register your drone if it is 250 grams and up. Now, there is a lot of places, and it depends on which country you're from, where you're flying it. There's always different regulations in those areas, so you're always going to want to check with your local authority to see exactly what you need to do depending on what drone you have, if you need to register or not in your area. Now, even though you might not have to register it, that doesn't mean you don't have to abide by the standard FAA rules as far as pretty much all the common sense stuff. Don't fly it over 400 feet, well, at least here in the US, not over 400 feet. And of course, don't fly it around crowds, around too many people at night. A lot of those, basic stuff that if you are a drone pilot, you should be pretty familiar with, but at least you don't necessarily have to register it in a lot of areas. Now, when it comes to video resolution, we do have the new 4K 30 frames a second camera on the Mini 2. On the Mini 1, we only went up to 2.7K, so we do now have that 4K quality. Unfortunately, the sensor size is actually the exact same as the Mini 1, that 1/2.3-inch sensor, but at least we do have 4K at 30 frames a second, also 25 and 24 frames a second in 4K. It would have been nice if we got something like the Air 2, the 120 frames a second, but just like we talked about earlier, you move up in craft, you're going to have the higher specs on those crafts as well. So 1080p 60 frames a second is what we have as far as video resolution at the higher frame rates. Another new feature we have now on the Mini 2 is that you do have digital zoom on the Mini 2. You have 2 times zoom in 4K. So when you're shooting 4K, you're able to zoom in 2 times. You can either do it in a couple ways, either on the app, you can actually press on that 1x or 2x on the screen itself, or what I like to do best is press that function button here, and then you're able to use this scroll right here to actually zoom in and out. You can do that at 2 times while you're in 4K or 2.7K, and you can actually do 4 times zoom in 1080p. Same thing, you just need to press that function button and zoom in and out using the scroll wheel here on the very back. Now, when it comes to flight time, we do have a little bit of a bump. On the Mavic 1, we only had 30 minutes of flight time or max flight time. Now we have 31 minutes here on the Mavic Mini 2. Now, of course, those max flight times are in ideal environments and actually controlled environments that DJI does do them in. I will normally always have a hover test that I like to do on all these drones. So make sure to check out the links above, those down below. I normally will always include a little bit of a hover test just to show you guys how long it actually does stay in the air hovering. Now, when the Mavic 2 first came out, it also had OcuSync 2.0 technology, which a lot of people were excited about because if you did have something like this, a smart controller, ideally you would be able to hook up your smart controller to the Mavic Air 2, which is the same transmission system that the Air and the Mavic 2 Pro have. So ideally, the smart controller should be able to work, but as of right now, I got no confirmation yet from DJI if they're gonna make the smart controller compatible with the Mini 2, but hopefully they'll be able to do that in a firmware the same way that it did with the Mavic Air 2. Now DJI actually has a all new battery on the Mini 2 compared to the Mini 1. But what a lot of people might not know is that if you do have a Mini 1, you are able to use your Mini 1 battery on the Mini 2. It actually will slide in just like that. This is the Mini 2 with the Mini 1 battery. Close this up, power it on. There we go. We are nice and powered on. So you can actually use the Mini 1 batteries on the Mini 2. I'm also going to be doing a full test on that just to see, also another hover test to see how much more battery efficiency is on the Mini 2 batteries. However, you can't use the Mini 2 battery on the Mini 1. They did change the shape of the battery itself, so it actually won't go in at all. But just so you guys know, the Mini 1 batteries do work on the Mini 2. Now, if you've flown one of the earlier Mavics, you might be familiar with this remote right here. But if you have purchased or know about the Mavic Air 2, then you know that there's a new remote control that they recently released with the Air 2. And now it's pretty much the exact same remote control that you'll be using with your Mini 2. Now, it does look like DJI, of course, is going away with this remote control because this is now the second drone to use this remote control right here. And I really don't mind because of the old remote control, you would have this screen or your phone right here down below. So you'd always be looking down at your screen while you're flying. Here we have the screen right above it. You're going to put your mobile device here at the very top, so your screen is nice and higher, and that way your controls are a little bit lower. Makes it for a lot easier of a flight as far as where you're positioning and where you're looking at compared to the old remote right here. Now, when it comes to charging your Mini 2, there is a couple options. You can either charge it directly from the back of the drone. There's actually now a USB-C port on the Mini 1. We still had that micro USB. I'm glad that they updated it now to a USB-C port here on the very back. So if you wanted to charge your battery on the Mini, you're able to either plug it directly into the back of the Mini 2, or of course you could take the battery out just like so, pull this out, and then put this into, if you did have something like the Flymore combo, you're able to put it into that hub. And just like the Mini 1, if you wanted to charge your Mini 2 off of a power bank, all you need to do is, of course, have something like this, which is an Anchor power bank, and you plug it into the back of the Mini 2 just like that. And then, as you can see here, we are charging up the battery just like that. Now, one update I'm happy about is that we have a little bit better wind resistance on the Mini 2 compared to the Mini 1. They're rating this as a level 5 versus the Mini 1, which is a level 4. Now, I don't know what DJI exactly did with the Mini 2, but it does have a lot more stability in the air. And also, I have yet, after all these flights, have gotten a wind warning yet. And I've flown at the beach multiple times where it's normally pretty gusty, and normally where I would get a lot of those warnings on the Mini 1, I have yet to get a warning on the Mini 2. Now, that's not saying it's not taking on wind and that they just turned off the warning. I don't know, but I haven't really felt or seen much of a difference with the Mini 2 that I normally would see on the Mini 1, especially if you're at higher altitudes. And for those who are wondering, as far as the propellers go, we still have the screw-in propellers. We do not have any quick release propellers. Not much has changed, but there's a little bit of design change on the motors themselves. Here we have more of an X pattern on the actual motor, where here we do not have that same X pattern on the motor. So they did do something with the motors and it changed up the design just a little bit. But as far as the props go, we still have these screw-in props and we do not have the quick release props. That change could also add a little bit weight, which will then put it over that 250 gram mark. And of course, another big question that everyone wants to know is, did we get any obstacle avoidance updates from the Mini 1 to the Mini 2? And a quick answer is no, we did not. We still have these same sensors here at the very bottom. That's of course going to help you when you're flying indoors without GPS and also when you're landing. But when you look all the way around the Mini 2, everything actually looks very similar or pretty much exactly the same with the Mini 1. We have those grills up in front. Those aren't actually sensors. They are just little grills, and nothing on the side, nothing on the back, nothing on the top. So we do not have any additional or any added obstacle avoidance sensors on the Mini 2. Now without those obstacle avoidance sensors, this is more than likely the reason why we're not going to have something like active track on the Mini 2. Now for those aren't familiar with active track, it's basically one of those ways for the drone to follow you, so it needs to be able to track you, and the obstacle avoidance is really needed in the system in order for them to dodge and go around any obstacles. Now if that's something you feel like you need to have in order for you to produce whatever content you want to create, then you would just move up to something like the Air 2 or the Mavic 2 Pro. Now even though it doesn't have obstacle avoidance or the active track, it still has some smart features like the Quickshots. There's actually 5 Quickshots on here. The first one's Droney, then we have Circle, Rocket, Helix, as well as Boomerang. And I'm glad they included that on there, mainly because every time I go out, I'll normally do at least one of the Quickshots just to get myself an establishing shot of that area. I'll either normally do something like Circle or Helix. And what it does, it really just gives you an automated flight path all the way around your subject and does everything itself. You don't have to do it. You don't have to be a great pilot in order for you to do some of these a little bit more complicated moves. So having quick shots on there is actually a really good feature. Now I'm happy that the Mini 2 does have JPEG and RAW format. So if you wanted to do some post-processing in something like Lightroom or Photoshop, you now have a lot more data to work with the raw photos that come out of the Mini 2. Now if you previously owned the Mavic Mini 1 and you had a bunch of accessories for it, like filters, and here I have like a landing pad from PGY Tech, some filters. Just like you guys know that the filter sets and the landing gear and stuff actually still work on the Mini 2. The form factor of the Mini and everything is pretty much all the same. So I did put the filters on them. It worked. I put the legs on them. They actually fit exactly the same. And I even put one of the PGY Tech cages on the Mini 2 that fit too. So it seems like all of the accessories, or a majority of the accessories that came out for the Mini 1, is still compatible now with the Mini 2. Now as far as the body changes, there really isn't much change in the actual form factor and the shape or pretty much design of the Mini 1 to the Mini 2. The only thing they did add here is a light at the very front. So as you can see here in the nose of the Mini 1, there is no light. They actually added a light right here on the very front of the Mini 2, and that light, you can actually control the color of the light through the app. So if you wanted to change that color. Now when it comes to pano modes in photo, you can actually do a few different types. There's sphere, where it'll actually shoot all the way around, a full 360 to shoot you an entire sphere looking shot. There's a standard 180 mode, so it'll actually give you a shot all the way across, stitched out in 180 degrees. And there's also a wide angle where it actually will shoot up and kind of give you what I used to call like a layered panoramic. So it'll shoot up across, down in the middle, and then down below, and just give you a nice big wide angle type of panoramic. A new feature we have is quick transfer. So if you wanted high resolution video or photos straight from the drone, you're able to download it to your mobile device even without the remote control. All you have to do is press and hold this light button here on the very back of the drone. It will now open up a Wi-Fi and Bluetooth connection so that you're able to now see all the videos and photos that are on your aircraft. Then all you have to do is select which one you want, download it up to 20 megabytes per second straight to your mobile device. That way, if you wanted to do any editing on your phone or even airdrop it to your system, you're able to do that very quickly. Another feature that it brought over, which came a little bit late on the Mini 1, is now you have full manual control in photo and video mode on the Mini 2. So now when you shoot video, you do have more control over the exposure by being able to change the ISO as well as the shutter speed on the Mini 2. Of course, you're not able to change the aperture. It is a fixed aperture, but at least you now have full control in both photo and video mode to change the ISO and the shutter speed. Honestly, if you're looking at a beginner drone, this is probably going to be your best bet, especially at this price range and what you're going to need it for. Like I said, if you need specific things that you have to have a higher quality camera, if you're shooting something like, you know, something with more of a higher production value, you wanted something as far as some of the better camera qualities out there, then the Mavic 2 Pro, of course, is probably still your best bet. If you need something like active track, or you wanted just a little bit better and more enhanced obstacle avoidance, then move up to something like the Mavic Air 2. And if you're like most people who just want to have a fun, reliable drone that can fly miles away without any issues, and you don't have to worry about any registration depending on where you are flying it at, you still get 4K quality, you get JPEG and RAW capabilities on here, you get quick shots. This drone is probably, I would say, the best way to go. Now, because some of the features on the Mini 2 is very similar to the Mini 1, I am going to link a bunch of videos down below that I did on the Mini 1. So make sure you guys do check that out. If it is your first time flying this type of drone, I do have a basic setup guide for the Mini 1, which is pretty much very similar to the Mini 2, except for the remote control. And also, if you are getting out there for your very first flight, I do have another video that talks about what to do, what to expect on your very first flight. And if you guys know me, I'm also going to make a bunch of videos on the Mini 2 going in a lot more detail on a lot of these features. So if this is your first one, you want to know a little bit more about what the remote control does, how the app works, what's in the app, how do you change different functions and settings. I'm of course going to go through all those in separate videos. So make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel, have the notification bell turned on. That way you don't miss any videos that come out about the Mini 2. As always guys, if you guys got some value from this video, a big like would be much appreciated. And also don't forget to subscribe, hit that bell to be notified when I post new videos. This is Ultra Stasio with FlytPath.com. I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.